Like, listen, every person on the street, for the most part, is going to look at you and be like, I will beat her ass. That's a mindset they have. So you got to stop looking at the problem I'm seeing in law enforcement now, because people are pushing for equality and all of this, which rightfully so. But that doesn't change when suspect A wants to beat female cop A's ass. They don't give a fuck about equality. They don't care about any of that. Like, half of them that we're dealing with had just got done whooping their wife's ass.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fit for Duty podcast, episode number, Taylor, I don't even remember right now.
But I have no idea.
Glad to be back though. Pretty much we wanted to just come on here, get you guys an episode, because if you probably heard from us or you're friends with us, you probably know that we're going to be talking to our first female law enforcement officer, I guess like a guest. And we had some, back, like pretty much like scheduling issues back and forth. Like the first time was like mandatory overtime. And you all know with this job, how, that stuff kind of comes up sometimes. So either way, we still want to get on here and pretty much get you guys an episode while we schedule that with her, and then get some content out there for you. I know some of you all been texting and asking. But with that said, we wanted to kind of go on the topic of the whole controversial topic of like, should women be in law enforcement? That's like a question I hear amongst people talk about all the time. And like, even it could have been like 30 years ago or even now, it's still a question that constantly gets bring up or whatnot, or people feel a certain type of way about it. So we kind of want to give our thoughts on it, go over it, because obviously we do have our first guest coming on who is a female officer. So I think it'd be a good segue right into that interview and whatnot. And I know Taylor has some good things to say. I have my thoughts and I think it's going to be good. But thanks again for being patient. And like I said, like not only was this scheduling stuff, but pretty much is like life just got really busy. I mean, when I left the sheriff's office, I thought I would have more time, Taylor, but I was talking to you about, but that's one reason why I left. Now I'm freaking more busy because I have more time available for the business. Now I'm just even more busy with that. I had to hire an assistant coach. I have my own assistant, and it's with that said, with them doing their jobs makes us, makes the business that much more successful and that much more busy. And so like we're about to finishing up. We're in the middle of our challenge right now. We just did our giveaway not too long ago. So hopefully things start slowing down for sure once this challenge ends. But hey, you never know. I mean, it's a good thing to be busy, so that's always great. But glad to be back and but see Taylor more often. So
yeah, no, it's good to be back. Kind of on the same way, and there was things going on. We both had a lot going on in life. I know my kids are super busy, but kind of goes to our overall message too. Like we tried to record a couple times, but at the same time, it's like we knew like I had to take a step back. Like my kids had so much going on, and it's kind of hypocritical for us to, to push family stuff aside. It's like, yeah, we're only on here for an hour, but it takes up a lot of time. And at the same time, like the podcast has been really good. Like I get tons of phone calls, messages, text messages of people looking for help, reaching out for help. Success stories. Had another guy call and talk about how it's helped him, and he's repeated to it. Like, so it is a lot. And it's really, really overwhelming. Sometimes you kind of go down that rabbit hole and getting sucked back into that life, and you hear people's drama with agencies and their complaints, and then you start kind of going down there. So it's always good. And like everybody on here listening should do the same thing, take a step back away from their career, whatever it is, and kind of check out for a little bit, just like we preach. So with us getting those type of phone calls and messages and life in general, like it kind of sucks you back down a hole. Not saying that you don't want to go there, but that we all trying to, avoid at the same time, because we have to be able to take care of ourselves as well. So,
no, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is something that working the job, doing the business. At one point I was like working the job, doing the business, and also prepping for my last show. And like there was that incident, and also one time when being on SWAT, being detectives, and constantly getting called out, and then constantly working. And I did being now in the situation I'm in now. I never always had, there were moments where we have something scheduled, and I'd be like, like I'm like with my kid or with my wife, and I'm like, you know what, I could probably move some things around and move things around, but I was like, should I? You know what I mean? And like you with even you yourself, it's like we always talk with each other, and we're always like, hey, I got this going on, but I could probably do this. And we're all I like the fact that we work so well together, and when you're just like, hey, I do what you gotta do. I'm just like, hey, like don't stress about it, you know, like we definitely want to get the content to you guys, but I don't want Taylor to have to stress about our, you know, have to feel like he needs to, because again, we do preach this to you guys, but then we shouldn't have to, we shouldn't be hypocritical ourselves and then try to push it or whatnot. So
yeah, no, I agree.
yeah, but yeah, with that said, on to this topic. Let's see how it goes. And but yeah, should women be in law enforcement? So pretty much like my thoughts on that. I mean, from the Marine Corps itself, I think when it comes down to you get into a whole separate, I guess, conversation when it gets like down to like the military, even like special forces or infantry stuff. That's a whole nother conversation that we won't get into because we're just first responder based. But should women be in law enforcement? Do I think they should be there? Yes, I do honestly think they should be in there. And one conversation I used to have with my female cadets when I was an RTO, and I had this conversation all the time, was I always told them like, hey, you're going to be judged right off the bat, just like how, and I think the reason why I felt it that way is because they're obviously much smaller. Well, some of them are much smaller. And so I only put it in my perspective, like being a shorter officer and being much smaller, people always had like that judge. So when I was working or from the academy or when I was working on the street, like I've always constantly felt like, like it came down to use of force or stuff like that, or someone wanting to test you. It's like, yeah, let's go test that guy. And it's like, even though I always came out on top, or I always like showed pretty much never back down and did my job very well, did what I had to do. It's always like, why are they always coming after me for? Like, why don't they go to, you know, 6 foot plus Cody over here? You know what I mean? So I was just always like, it always felt like that pressure was coming this way, but then it was up to me to always be ready no matter what. It was up to me to always like do whatever it took to be, I don't know, just be how I am. And I feel like it's been that way since I was a freaking in middle school, you know, from going through school, always being tested. Going to the Marine Corps, where I mean, Marine Corps is packed like, I always tell people all the time, like, it's like prison whenever you're like in, like, you're like new and you're like kind of like the new person in the unit or whatever, or even the base, and you run into someone or just like, what unit are you from? Or they'll like test you and be like, let's go fuck with them. I mean, the first 30 seconds of going joining my unit, I got kicked in the chest from the like moment I arrived. So it's like, let's see how he reacts, let's see how he does different things. So it's kind of like that. So same thing with the female officers. Are going to be the fact that they are female, or the fact that they're just like much smaller. People are going to see them. I don't know. And Taylor's gonna be much more better explaining this, but just like you're going to be tested compared to, let's say, like some guy that's like 6'4", just a big guy in general. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
I mean, you explain a lot better than I do.
No, you explained it perfect. And I agree 100%. Like, first off, it's a controversial topic. Like, it shouldn't be a controversial topic, but let's face it, like, people can say, like, there shouldn't be double standards and all of this type of stuff in life. Like, sometimes you just got to fucking face reality, right? I'm a father of 4 girls. I have no more sons, all girls. So I believe in my girls, and I know my girl daughters could handle absolutely anything in the world, but I'm also a realist when it comes to them. And that's where it can become controversial. Or like, I've trained a lot of female deputies, and luckily I've had just pretty much all good ones. However, in society in general, again, I'm not saying this is my opinion, but you have to understand the mindset behind certain people and individuals that you're dealing with. They view women as weaker physically and mentally, right? So, and I'm talking about like a training standpoint. So in my opinion, absolutely, women belong in law enforcement. They belong in every field they want to be in. And like I explained to my daughters, and I've explained to trainees, but some people don't want to have those conversations because they're worried, especially in today's age, about fucking hurting somebody's feelings. And somebody, obviously we're talking about females, a female complaining on them. And I would have pretty honest conversations with them. And everyone I've ever talked to is appreciated. But you got to understand the dynamics in law enforcement, the dynamics of the people that we are dealing with on a regular basis, and people in the job, just society view women as being physically and mentally weaker. And I'm not saying that is the case, but obviously as a woman, and I've told my daughters and trainees, you have to understand 99% of the time, you will just, because of testosterone bills, be physically weaker than somebody who you're dealing with. And they know that. So therefore, you have to, in my opinion, everyone should train hard. But as a female, be like, you do have a lot to prove. But in my opinion, you have to work harder. Like, your skills should be sharper. You should have a plan and just this intent for violence when necessary that should be next level, right? Because that's the challenges that are going to come your way if you get put into certain situations. Like, and people can sit here and argue with that all day long, whatever. I mean, I'm a pretty small guy myself, and I'm with you. Like, people would always want to fight. Like, I'm 5'5", you know what I mean? However, just, you have to think like a suspect. Like, people got to get away from this mindset of like fair and equality. I agree with equality and fairness and all that. And so there's got to be a divide, in my opinion, when training females, or certain everybody, but we're talking about females, and I'll say what other people don't want to say. You got to bring it to their awareness of like, hey, society thinks you're fucking weak. If you walk into a party, if a guy who's 5'10", 265 pounds, a deputy, is massive and walks into a group of 3 to 4 people, naturally, and that guy could be a weak, he might get his ass kicked. Yeah. However, naturally, people are going to be like, holy shit, like, I ain't fucking with that dude. Some guys might. Your average female, 5'6", even to like 5'10", people will naturally think they can beat her ass. Like, yes. From the get-go, suspects and people are already thinking that. Yeah, I'm not saying that's true. So I don't want people getting all pissed off listening to this, because some of the baddest people I've worked with are females. Like, when I started in the jail in the early 2000s, at one point, I was the only male on the shift, right? Oh, wow. And there was female sergeants, female seniors, all kinds of females. There might have been one other guy. Dude, those females whooped people's asses. Like on the sergeant there was like, I actually ended up working with her son later on, supervising him. She would beat the living hell out of people, obviously justifiably, right? However, we were always in fights on our shift, and we worked a 4 to midnight shift because we were predominantly, and our jail setup was way different back then, old bars right there. People knew our shift, right? So we got challenged regularly. And we knew it was because we were predominantly female shift. Like, I was one of the only males, right? Okay, and that shift change, it really happened. And then next thing you know, because we're just whooping everybody's ass in there, justifiably, because everyone wanted to fight and people would come in. You know, word kind of got around. However, our entire shift got challenged because of that. So my point behind of that is, we have to fight for women's rights and all that. And that is a topic for a different conversation. But if you want to save someone's fucking life and have females with the right mindset, they have to understand they should have a chip on their shoulder. They should work out harder. Their technique should be fucking better. Their mindset should be better. And I train a lot of female clients, right? First responders, cops, they work harder in the gym than any of the males, by far. Just how it goes. And that's how it should be. And I tell them that. Like, listen, every person on the street, for the most part, is going to look at you and be like, I will beat her ass. That's a mindset they have. So you got to stop looking at the problem I'm seeing in law enforcement now, because people are pushing for equality and all of this, which rightfully so. But that doesn't change when suspect A wants to beat female cop A's ass. They don't give a fuck about equality. They don't care about any of that. Like, half of them that we're dealing with had just got done whooping their wife's ass. If they're going to whoop your wife's ass, and then you also have a dynamic in society that we commonly deal with for a reason, domestic violence, like male suspects, there is female too, but male suspects don't take kind to females telling them what to do. Yeah. And that's why they're beating on their wives. And now you have female or females in law enforcement position telling this male who just beat his own wife what to do. You think he's going to listen to her? No. He's not going to listen to a male cop, more than likely. But again, because he has been ingrained in his mind that females are the lower step. But you got to get this shit out of your head. Suspects don't give a shit about equality. They don't care about women's rights. Nobody gives a fuck when it comes to the suspect side of it. You know what I mean? They're not thinking, hey, this is 2022. everybody should be treated equal. This 30, 40-year-old, 50-year-old suspect, whatever they are, like, I'm going to whoop this female cop's ass. She will not be able to touch me.
Yeah.
And I bring that up only as a mindset of that you should have of what you're walking into. Like, I legitimately had one female tell me that she won't get into a fight because she bats her eyes at the suspects, and it's just kind of flattering.
No fucking way.
I swear to God.
Oh my gosh.
Like, she's not here anymore, but so the problem is it's stupid comments like that make the rest of female officers look bad. But that's just life in general, right? Like, people say dumb shit too. And, you know, and I've talked to a lot of females about it, of you should have a chip on your shoulder, you have something to prove. And then when it comes into your own agency, like, just be you. Like, be yourself. To me, the biggest mistake I see a lot of females make is trying to fit in with the guys. And, like, meaning, God, and that's going to get taken the wrong way. And I don't mean it like that, but, like, just be you. It's obvious when you're being somebody who you're not. Like, you know what I mean? But it's like, just be you. Like, you made it that far for a reason. So just keep being you, because you are going to bring so much to the table. Like, women just think different. Like, they're a little more calculated and clear. And, you know, like, one of the best female cops I work with, like, I won't say her actual name, but we refer to her by, we called her Mama Bear, right? You know, because, like, legitimately, like, shut his ass. She was an amazing investigator, one of the best. But one of the biggest things she brought to the table is when shit was chaos, or like stuff with ever, you know, in our unit, in our system, or our, you know, team, wherever we were at, like, we worked together in the substation before. Like, she was always, she was like literally the glue to the shift and glue to our lives. And she was an amazing cop, but she brought so much more to the table because she was just her. Like, she is to this day. Like, she's just her. Like, however she is, I mean, she can be rough around the edges sometimes, but she's a great cop. But she's an amazing mom. And as we all know, like, that motherly figure brings a lot. Like, and that's where it becomes, what do you want to call it? Controversial. Because when you say stuff like that, and it's like, dude, like, calm down. If you're going to get mad at me saying, like, you know, that motherly instinct in you can bring a lot to the table, well, that's fine. You can be mad at me, but you're going to sell yourself short for what you bring to this fucking job. Like, that same cop I'm talking about is doing amazing things right now with kids, sexual assault victims, interviews, all kinds of stuff, right? Yeah. Like, she's an amazing person, but she's a great street cop. But in my opinion, she's an amazing investigator. Like, but because she's staying true to who she is as a person. That doesn't mean that's for everybody, but I see that with a lot of people, but especially female cops in interviews, they trying to kind of just jam themselves in one hole to prove a point. It's like, find your niche, be you, use your heart. Don't let this job change you. Like, there's another controversial topic, but whatever I'll say it is, like, and not everyone's like this, but you know, when you see someone, like, they almost tried to be like a man too much.
Yeah, I've seen that.
You know, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, except everybody sees it. Like, but if that is just who you are, then just be who you are. But you'll also see them kind of come back, and then they, you know, then their personal lives kind of struggle a little bit, because it's just they're taking on this persona that they're not.
An identity crisis.
It's like an identity crisis because of the pressures of society and saying, like, females shouldn't be in it and all of that type of stuff. But I truly do think, like, you know, you got to be better. Like, you got to work harder. Your skills have to be sharper. You know, you find your niche and you fucking stay with it. Don't fall into, my advice is, don't fall into the trap that society is feeding right now. It's like, yes, women's right. I have 4 daughters. Women's rights are great. They can do anything they want, but don't let that mindset. Don't, like, I don't know. I have already kind of said it, but don't allow that mindset to get you killed, I guess, is about the fucking only way I can say it, right? Don't let that mindset of, like, you know, all these people for pushing for equality and women's rights and all this stuff, don't let that shit get you killed. Just remember, criminals, suspects, don't give a fuck about that. So, you know, take that how it is. Feel free to message me. We can discuss it if I piss you off or hurt your feelings. But that's a fact. I'm here to save your ass with advice, not kiss it. So that's just how it goes.
Exactly. Even with suspects not giving a shit about what they think, it also comes, even this is what I think, it also comes down to the partner of whoever they're working with as well. Like they don't give a shit that, so I guess how to explain that is, like for me, I don't give a shit that you're a female, but I would expect you to be able to at least, I'm 175 pounds, which is still, I guess, like somewhat heavy, right? With vests and whatnot. But imagine being like, let's say a 6 foot guy, like 220, right? Or 230. Like our mindset is we expect you to be able to carry us or drag us across the pavement if like I was to get shot or something was to happen, right? So it all comes down to that. Just like me being short as fuck, people on the SWAT team expected me to drag them with all their SWAT gear on. And that's why I've always trained to be my best. I always train as hard as I am. Like I'm like the fitness guy, right? Like I always say like the short buff guy, right? Our Mighty Mouse.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I earned that name Mighty Mouse from the Marine Corps till even as a cop was because of how my lifestyle is and how I am. But that's all because of like being how I was raised. My father was like, hey, you're short as fuck. You got to fucking do something because you're going to be tested your whole life practically. And so I always wanted to make it a point to the point that like, no matter what I did, whether it's from the Marine Corps or doing the martial arts in the Marine Corps, whatever it is, wrestling, going being a cop, all of, SWAT, all this shit, I wanted to make sure that whenever someone met me and either thing I did was like, I know I trust him to get the job done. And I know that like, they don't even see me as short anymore. They just see me like, Gilbert's going to fucking do it regardless. And so it comes down to the same thing with like being a female officer. Like you can't look at it, you can't get mad or anything like that. You just got to have that. Cause I don't get mad. I already know, like, they're probably already going to, like, first day on the SWAT team, like, okay, let's see whatever this feels all about. But it's like, they're really going to know how it is. Like, all right, well, we expect you to be able to just, we don't care that you're a female or male. Like I don't care if you could be a male who's 120, who's weak as shit. You could be big as shit and still be weak as shit. And like, if you can't drag me or whatever, you can't shoot really well, then you ain't shit, So it's the same thing. Like, if you're going to come and do these things as well, I just want to trust you to be able to do that exact same shit. Because if I get shots like that, I want to be able to trust that you could do it.
No, I agree with you 100%. And that's a great point. And I agree, man, 100%. I have the same expectations for everybody.
Yes.
And I used to tell trainees that in anybody. Like, I had a couple people be like, well, shouldn't we change the expectations for females? Like literally people wanted to change the difficulty in our training for females. And it actually pissed me off, right? And I'm like, why would we do that? And they're like, well, and I'm like, but that's the mindset, right? That's the mindset. And the people who would preach that are the ones who didn't believe in the females, the ones who didn't believe females should be in law enforcement, right? You can't change expectations or physical demands because the job does not cater to that.
No.
This is not a fitness competition. This is a fucking life competition.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and then by expectations, like, I mean, like fighting, engaging, skill set, shooting, different stuff like that. There's plenty of guys who couldn't drag me or, different stuff like that. But I've had more male partners fail to engage in fights or critical incidents than female partners. I've never had a female partner not engage. I've had multiple male partners not engage, get back down and fight, stuff like that. And I can honestly say that. And I'm talking about from my jail days to the street days. Never was I in a fight, and I was been in several fights with female partners. And then was I like, honestly, I didn't really think about it. Because I had those same expectations from them. I knew how they were. Did I worry about them more? Absolutely. And it brings me to my next topic. And because I've had some females get upset with me, but we were good friends. They kind of brought it to me. And finally, they just got it. In my opinion, expect your male partners to be more protective over you than they are of other people. That is just a natural tendency for men. Like some women take offense to it, right? That's just how I always was. And I told people that, and they were like, it shouldn't matter. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but yeah, like I'm trying to figure out how to explain this without, if you disrespected one of our deputies, it was untolerated.
Yeah.
You disrespected a female deputy in front of me, that's a whole different level of not being tolerated. You try and hit a male deputy, okay, Like, you know what I mean? We're going to handle things accordingly. You try to hit a female deputy, you're going to see different reactions out of people. That is just a natural tendency. Like,
even if you're out in public, the same thing.
It's a natural tendency, right? Like, and finally, one of the female deputies, and came to me, and we were talking one day, and I kind of talked to her about it, and she's like, I get that. She's like, I appreciate that, and she's like, you know what? My husband appreciates that, and it doesn't mean like we're saying you can't do the job. You just have to understand that is who we are. That's who you should be. So you should be super protective of everybody that's next to you. It's a natural tendency for men to be protective over women, and especially women that we're close with. That is just how it is. Now, that doesn't mean I wouldn't give them assignments or let them do anything or, stuff like that. I jumped in front of female partners who are about to get hit and punched and fights, same way I would jump in front of, male partners. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that kind of started with me in the jail too, because I had on that same female shift, people saying, you're super protective over the females. I was like, okay, like, we can handle ourselves. No one's saying you can't handle yourselves. You got to get over that. Like, I've had guys, new guys, or that I would get in fights for and step in front of. I did that till the day I retired. I mean, one of my IAs was that. You know what I mean? So was me going and handling things myself. So you can't take that as they don't think you can handle it. Now, if they're not giving you like positions on certain units or, letting you bang doors or first in the room, blah, 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 and you put your work in and your skill set is higher than that guy next to you, yeah, that's bullshit. That's not the stuff I'm talking about. Yeah. That's not the protective, that's not the protective type that I'm talking about. So I don't even know if that comes across right, but I always was naturally super protective of the female deputies. It's a natural tendency of who I am as a father, as a man. Like, that's just what we do. So not every male supervisor or somebody like that thinks you're incapable. It's just a natural tendency for us. And I think when you have that mindset, but on the same token, I'm sure there's plenty of agencies, plenty of supervisors, plenty of dickheads out there who kind of push themselves onto women and, don't give them certain spots on the team, or on a team because they're a girl. So, it's I don't know. It is a very controversial topic because, I don't know. There's not a lot of women in law enforcement anyways. Not all of them get on like a specialty type unit all the time, but there's more guys. Like if you look for like a SWAT selection, for example.
Yeah.
And there's more guys, I would say 95, if not 98% more guys denied or do not make a SWAT team than there is girls. And the reason I say that is like you may have one applicant out of 300 that's a female.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, people kind of always say that. And this is just, and I think we have to think like just who we are as people and where things were going to be. And it does get controversial because a lot of it is based on perspective and people's opinions and society. And it kind of comes with the mental health stigma. Like there's a stigma with women in law enforcement. That's really, what we're talking about. If you think about it, there's a stigma that comes with law enforcement because of just society and how people are. And they were unwilling to accept women and the military and law enforcement. Military had, other issues, kind of other reasons for it. But law enforcement was kind of there. And just like anything else, there's bad apples. There's women that kind of ruined it for the rest of the women and gave them bad names. I mean, some of the hardest charging partners I had, dude, were women. Like they didn't fucking play around. And because they had a chip on their shoulder at the same time. They were good cops, good people. They walk around like that, but like they didn't put up with people's shit. Like they were well prepared for it because they were just those types of females anyways. Like one of them really, really good, has moved on and works for a different, a couple of them work for different counties and most of them are gone. I know there's a few left, but the ones I worked with have kind of all left the agency and they're great cops, like really good investigators, great cops. They wouldn't they wouldn't back down for nothing. To me, females are a lot more level-headed when it comes to a lot of shit too and decision-making and stuff. So they definitely have their part, but you just got to understand, the shit you see on social media with equality and the way that suspects care, bullets don't care, knives don't care, ass whoopings don't care what gender you are. And that is just how it goes. And you got to keep that mindset, because I'm kind of seeing a bad trend of, people are kind of relying on that a little bit, you know what I mean, of this whole equality thing, which is great. I said that earlier. That shit just doesn't save your fucking life.
No, you explained that perfectly, and I definitely understand where you're coming from. And like you're saying, like you feeling like you're having that one, like that natural instinct to protect them. You weren't, and nowhere in that did you say I lowered my expectation for them at all. Like that, you still assume the same expectation with them and anyone else.
I probably had a higher expectation for them, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I really did. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I grew up with female cousins and everything. My expectation was probably higher. I expected more out of them. But yeah, no, you're right.
Exactly. And even with that, so like, I mean, my last what would you call it? Like my last assignment that I had, it was pretty much just me and as far as like in that assignment that wasn't a part of like the main agency. It was me and another TFO that was a female, and it was just me and her. And I will say, like, she was very hardworking. And the thing I liked about her is exactly what I like about every other. That was like probably my first partner who was just female, right? Just me and her. Just only just two of us, right? And I was like, I had net from the get go. I don't care. Like, I don't judge no one from the get go. I could care less. I just want to see like how you are, how you react, all like pretty much your mindset. And I liked her so much because she could care less about trying to, like you said, like trying to be more like a man. She could care. She literally was just herself. The first few minutes of meeting her, that was the vibe that she gave off, and she didn't change it for fucking nobody. Like, she could talk to someone else walking down the hallway. She could talk to me. She could talk to our sponsor at the agency. Like, it didn't matter. She was just her. And like, she always had like this, like the same face, like the resting bitch face, which I love. But she was super nice still, super outgoing, but then always wanting to work, always very hardworking. She was like literally a workhorse, and always willing to listen, like anything. Like, I was like, this is exactly how it should be. Like, she could care less about trying to be anyone else or trying to she knew that she was going to be good, and she was good, and she was hardworking, that she could care less about. Like, she already knew she was doing everything that she needed to do as a female officer. And it was great. I was like, this is exactly, she wasn't trying to prove to anyone, like you said, the whole guy thing, like, I'm gonna try to be different. Like, no, it was just like that. And I fucking loved it. I was like, cool. I didn't even see her as a female. It was just my partner. That's all it was. I was like, oh yes, it's my partner.
No, exactly. And I think dude, it's a vibe. And because like, even if you get male partners or just male guys, like they walk in and they're just trying to be someone they're not, you're just like, who the fuck is this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, seriously.
No, yeah.
It's just, male guys try to be bigger, badder, tougher than what they are. They're talking a certain way, using certain lingo, and you just know that's not them, because you can just tell. We can all just tell. Now, I'm not saying some females don't act a certain way. That's fine. And you can act and talk and do whatever you want. I'm saying just be you. Be who you are at home and everywhere else. Obviously, you got to be a little bit different, at the job and stuff like that. But just be you, because it comes across as genuine. Like, some of the best female partners I had, like a couple of them had like pink cuffs. I know this sounds funny, but like their makeup and hair was done every day. They smelt good. You know what I mean? My point behind that is they were just still being them. You know what I mean? Like, they weren't worried about being girly, and dude, they would whoop your ass though. Like, when it came down to it, like, it didn't matter. Like, it didn't matter if she had perfume or whatever, hair is done, makeup's done, whatever. Like, they're still good cops. They didn't try and do anything different. You know, so, and to me, I have a ton of respect. Luckily, I've had like I said, all good female partners. There's only one that did some dumb stuff. She really wasn't a partner, but dude, I've had really, really good luck with female partners. Like, from my days in the jail to all the years on the streets and people I supervised, because supervising a female, again, be open-minded when you guys hear this, but supervising a female as a male can be complicated, I guess.
No, I feel you.
Just because it depends on who they are, and if they have that chip on their shoulder, like, fuck you, you're just out for me, or they don't want to be open-minded. And I've had a couple going down that road, just guys the same way too, but we're talking about females tonight. where they're like, oh, you're just saying that because I'm a female. I'm like, no, it's not. But oh yeah, on this topic that we're talking about, because I would have this conversation with them, like, hey, that party of gangster right there looks at you as a female. They have no respect for females. Understand their culture. They don't respect females. Like gangsters, for example, like, yeah, they may respect their mom. They don't give a shit about females or female counterparts or their girlfriends. They're sexed into gangs. They're raped. They disrespect females. Females are really not even allowed to be part of the business when it comes to that, right? Understand that fucking mindset and understand cultures, certain cultures you're going to look down on women. So when you go onto that call or go into that scene, they does not change because you have a badge. It does not change. And I would always have that conversation. We're like, well, you just tell me because I'm a girl. Yeah, you're right. Like, that's just like how it goes. I would go on calls, like, especially as a supervisor, but with females and Hispanic culture. And you know me, I grew up in the Hispanic culture, and as you did too. But if there was 2 females on scene and I was there, another female, they would look right past those females and to me as a male. And I'd be, the fuck you looking at me for? Talk to them. Literally, I would tell them that. They would refuse to talk to females. And I'm like, well, we're not going to help you. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, granted, we would use that later on, like, and I'm talking about just patrol cars, like investigations and stuff. We would use that to our advantage and disadvantage. But you got to understand that, and you have to be able to deal with that. Going back to supervising, that's part of the supervising issue. But at the same time, there's the whole, like, obviously, like, people are sleeping with other people, male-female relations, and it kind of goes into a whole relations. It's not like this fucking sex fest like some people make it out to be. But there are some people are like, you know what I mean? It's like people are like, oh my God, like, dude, seriously. It comes down to that. People think like a female in an agency is like banging everybody that she's hanging out with. Like a guy, no one says that about a guy, but like there's all this speculation with girls. So like
I am so happy about that. I'll come back to that. But yeah,
take the note. So yeah, and seriously, like I was close with tons of female. I'm still close with female cops to this day. I text them and message them, right? I never tried to hit on them ever, like, nor did they try and hit on me. But as a supervisor, like some people from the outside would see certain things, or, especially new females to my shift or new females in hires who had dealt with other supervisors who would try and ask them out and dates. And like, we both know it's there. People can deny whatever they want. I'm not going to go into stories with certain sergeants and different shit like that. It happens at all agencies. But for me, and because I supervise you, I'm a very hands-on type of sergeant, right? Like, hey, come into my office. Like, hey, where you at? Like, I'm going to go buy you coffee. Let's have a drink. How's your shift? Blah, 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 blah. I would get new females, either new to my shift who didn't really know me or just new to the job in general. And they would almost feel awkward at first with that.
Yeah.
Because, me, I'm a very, I talk to, like, I'm not like I'm not a flirtatious person at all, but like I talk to everybody the same because I'm very comfortable. It doesn't matter your race, your gender, your sexuality. Like I'm the same with everybody, right? I'm just going to sit here and talk to you. Like, so when I had females on my shift, I was the same way with them. Even females off my shift, I would hear they were having a hard time, and I would text them like, "Hey, how are you? Don't let that sergeant fuck with you. He's just being a dick. He's a male chauvinistic asshole. If you need anything, let me know." And they're like, "Oh, okay, cool." And after the first couple text messages, and I think they would talk to people and be like, "Okay, wait a minute. He's not trying to sleep with me. He's like genuinely trying to help me be better." So not only do people think like females, or you hear it like female, oh, she's probably sleeping with so and so. If you try and help or put a lot of attention into a female, people will say, "Oh, he's only doing that because he wants to sleep with her." And I was seriously like, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, go ask my guys how much time I put in them. I can tell you their kids' names. I don't know their birthdays per se, but you know what I mean? Like, I know what's going on. I talk to her like I talk to a guy. But if I call you at home or I text you at home, like, "Hey, I heard you had a rough call. How are you? Text me if you need anything." You're gonna be like, "Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it." You text that to a female, and after a while, they all know who I was or how I was. But like, if somebody else heard that, they'd be like, "Oh, he's just trying to sleep with her."
That's the shit that I do fucking hate. And
dude, and I was just like, it would drive me crazy. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm trying to, like, I call her or text her on her day off like I would anybody else, but because I'm doing that, I'm trying to sleep with her. And I think some of the females at first, I can think of 2 offhand who I got to know better on, I think they kind of thought that, and then they just kind of realized, because like I talked to one investigator, she's not here anymore, she's a female, we were pretty close, I told her that, and she was like, I never looked at it like that. She was like, but I can see why people would think that about you. And I was like, why? She was like, because, you're just hitting people up, texting them, you're, in their DMs, like, hey, I saw your family time. That's cool. Make sure you take time to your family, blah, 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 blah. I knew when people were having divorces, but I knew that about males and females. But right, I wanted to be there for them. But no, everyone would question it, or you would hear these fucking rumors. Because as a male sergeant, you're putting time into this female to help her get better, to help her succeed, and to help her, move on in her career. But because she's a female, everybody thinks you're doing it to sleep with her. And you're just like, dude, then I must be bisexual because have you seen how much time I put into the guys? Just seriously,
a lot too.
Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, damn, do the guys think I'm trying to hit on them and sleep with them? I mean, I've helped. Like I said, I have friends who are gay. I have friends that are cops that are gay and I DM them all the time. Like, they don't think I'm trying to sleep with them, right? But the people who think that are the same reason why we're having this fucking conversation to begin with. They're the ones against mental health. They're the ones against mental health. They're the ones against females in law enforcement. They're the ones that, will talk shit about females behind their backs. You know what I mean? They're the ones, they couldn't talk to a female like you or I would and be like, hey, you got to have a chip on your shoulder because that piece of shit right there thinks you're a piece of shit because you're a female. Because it's like people who are racist. They can't talk about race because they're fucking racist. I can talk about all of this because it's not who I am. You know what I mean? Like, but those people who think you're trying to invest into a female. I remember one time at range, there was a female, she was having trouble with her rifle. She's a really good cop, rough day. So I just put time into her, helping her. Literally walked back, look, someone was like, oh, and the rumor was like the next day was I was trying to sleep with her. And I'm just like,
do you want me to? Do you want her to be fucking better with more proficient with the rifle, or fucking not?
What?
Right?
But here's the fucking problem. Like, there was 200 guys out there that night, and I helped multiple guys. So I'm like, I'm trying to sleep with them.
Yeah.
Like, I've helped, and like I said, I have gay friends, and gay cops, and I've worked with them. Like, I help them. Someone's trying to sleep with them. But no, that is the problem. That is the stigma. It is a deep, deep issue that's embedded in society in fucking general. You know what I mean? Like, you can go on and on about that, but
no, and it makes complete fucking sense. And I that's probably one thing I think, because that's why I think why we're such good friends, because our mindset with this type of stuff, we never really look at it like that. We're aware of like how everyone else thinks of it, but we don't even care. We're just like, we're just gonna talk and do what we have to do, like how we conduct business. But that was one thing I always hated hearing people talk about was they'll be talking shit and be like, oh, like the whole sleeping with everybody. They hear about a female cop at a certain agency and they automatically assume,
oh yeah,
she's fucking everybody and this and that and this and that. And I'm always like, again, I'm always very like right in the middle, because we're fucking cops. We're all about dealing with, like you said, like the facts, right? Like if you don't have the facts, shut the fuck up type of thing. Like at work, I'm the same way when it comes to like life stuff. Like, all right, well, what do you have on her that you're thinking that? Well, I heard this. Like, oh, I don't give a fuck what you heard. Like, what do you know if it's actually factual? Well, I don't. Then why the fuck are you assuming and talking shit about?
Yeah.
You're pretty much talking shit about someone that you don't even fucking know, but you're just automatically assuming that she's a whore, she's this. Then I go into the conversation. I know who you are. I know who you are. I know, and I hear stories from like, we talk whatever. You talk about it being a man whore, whatever it is. Like we all, I mean, like we all have our backstories of that. But so why is it okay for us to be man whores growing up, and or even now when we're single, or even got fucking cops who are married and like freaking like I rolled up on cops who are married when I was working, and I can say where the fuck I want. I don't work anymore. But
I did too.
And it's like, times. So you can talk shit about this girl, but then but it's okay for you or any other guy to be like that. But the girl, she fucking, let's say she did sleep with fucking a couple guys. So why is she this? But then you're not that. You should be fucking just called like, I don't give a fuck. Why are they different for?
Dude, I was just gonna say that. I was thinking that when you were talking, because that was the case. We both know a lot of people are in like, I know a lot of man whores, like whatever. I personally don't care. Like, I don't care. And this could be too much, but like, I don't care who you're married to, who you're fucking, or anything like that, right? If it doesn't affect me or someone that I'm close to, I mean, like, I don't care if you're lesbian, I don't care if you're bi, I don't care what you do. You cheat on your wife, that's your business. Like, just don't bring that into me. Like, I don't
exactly,
exactly. But listen, I know a lot of drama with guys just banging a bunch of people, right? But you're right. If a female comes onto the agency, it's like automatically everyone's just like, oh, okay, she's fucking everybody based on what? And okay, like you said, and if she is, it's not your damn business. But because it's a female, like it's their business. However, that goes
Exactly.
back to that, and I talk to my daughters about it all the time. It is a double standard. Always will be a double standard. I don't agree with it, but you also have to understand the perception when it comes into law enforcement. It kind of goes back to what I was talking about, and I kind of had to understand it too. Of like, okay, here I am, a male sergeant, talking to these females all the time. But then I was like, you know what? Fuck that. Fuck that perception. You can kiss my ass because I know what I'm doing. I know why I'm doing it. Like fucking pound sand. Like I'm not going to, because then again, you're going back to treating them different.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You just have to come out to being like who you are. And that goes for female cops and all cops anyways. But like you're damned if you, damned if you don't. So fucking live your life. Do what you want to do. Like I don't understand. It always blows my mind. And I don't want to go off topic, but why people give a shit? Like
Exactly.
who's banging who? Like who's banging who? Why do you care? If it's like your wife or someone who's close, like if they want to go do that business, like why do people care? Like it I'll come back on the topic, but it just blows my mind how wrapped up people get in other people's life, like in their lives. Like they're so interested in this person's lives and have nothing to do with them. Like, dude, if Stay in Lane was fucking had a picture, it'd be law enforcement because everyone is up in everyone's business trying to tear him down. But that kind of goes the other way. But yeah, it just kind of goes to that. And that does bring a whole different, type of dynamic and stuff like that. So
Exactly. So moral of the story is if your boy gets lucky on the weekend, give him a hand five. And if your female partner gets lucky on the weekend, you give her a hand five too. Who gives a fuck?
exactly. Why? What is the difference? Like,
I don't know, man.
yeah.
That's one thing I think growing up, that's always pissed me off. Like, why can I do it? Like when I was in high school, why can I do it? And it's cool for me to do it. But then the one girl here that I don't probably really know her, but she's called a hoe the whole time. But I don't never even seen her. I seen her at parties, but I never really seen her do nothing. I'm confused.
Dude, I have these talks with my daughters all the time, and honestly, it frightens the fuck out of me. Because maybe it's because the world I come from.
I will say it's only the pretty ones though. It's always like they judge them from the. It's like what do you got them because they're pretty, so they're like automatically you assume that they're doing it because the ugly cops. Ain't no one ever say shit, but they could be just as hoish. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, no, that's true. And I guess I've never really had like an ugly partner either. So maybe that's why people thought even weird stuff. But dude, honestly, I was really close to like all my female partners. Like that was just how it was. Like and I think most of them, for the most, I mean, I honestly don't know one that was probably uncomfortable. I talked to most of them this day, either through social media and stuff like that. Because honestly, I can honestly sit here and look at you and say I've never hit on any of them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just wasn't like my genuinely like we were friends. You know what I mean? I didn't treat them any different. But it's like the guys who are uneasy around female cops with female partners. Like, I think they got some weird skeletons, but I have also seen some females at other agencies that do, but they're just same as any other guy, but they just happen to be female. Like they're just out waiting for someone to say something stupid to file a complaint. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it goes both ways. Yeah, I got no shit.
It does go, but I mean, guys are doing the same thing. But dude, like I always go back to my jail shift because when I worked there was, dude, you predominantly, like I did, worked with females, right? And it's like, dude, they were savages. Like I remember, you know what I mean? Because I was like, 20 years old. They're all in their 30s, 40s, So for me coming in, like, I'm like, oh God, I got to like treat them like my mom. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking at them like they're females, right? Respect them, deal with them, and protect them. Next thing I know, like they're cussing and punching people in the face more than me. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? So, I mean, that was kind of my introduction into female law enforcement was the jail. And they would all show up, hair done, nails on, you know what I mean? Nails on, makeup done. They would first into the fights too. Like that was just, so maybe I just had really good luck, but they weren't all hoes. They weren't all sleeping with everybody. Most of them were married. Some of them would, but they didn't care. Like they would tell you. Like I was like, whatever.
Yeah, I talked to them exactly the same way as I talked to if I was talking to a guy. Same exact story, telling everything. Just like, oh, that's cool.
And me too. And then I used to have to be like, hey, I'm sorry. Like
oh yeah,
especially if you don't know him that good, you're like, oh man, I'm sorry. Like I just, like, oh no, it's fine. But you're like, oh fuck, man. Like I don't know that. She's pretty new. I don't know. if I, maybe should have said that. It wasn't like bad or anything. You're just, I don't know.
And I think my first female partner, because obviously I worked with some of them, I see them in crossing and whatnot. My first female partner was in detectives, but she was much older than me, but she was very easy to talk with. And I would talk like that. Like we'll just be talking just about stories and stuff like that. And just talk about, if you could talk, I could talk normal, not to be worried about what I'm saying. And it was great. Same thing with my last partner, my last assignment, same exact thing. And she would just laugh. And then she would tell me something, and I would just laugh. And that's how it went. It was very simple.
Well, I mean, you should, if you really shouldn't be saying any shit that's so bad that even if you're talking to another dude, that it shouldn't be like so bad or so crazy that it would offend anybody. You know what I mean? I guess it could. You know what I mean?
No, exactly. Yeah.
So
they're just my friend, or my like you said, like a friend or a sister, like same exact shit.
Dude, most of my female partners would fucking say shit that make me blush more than like my male partners. And they weren't like saying it to me. They were just talking about like their life in general, or like their husbands or some stuff like that. And it was just like, Jesus.
Yeah, no, yeah, like, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, no. I learned female in law enforcement. They're probably worse than guys when it comes to some stuff. But that's good though. Like that's just who they are. They were comfortable being that, and being open about some were more reserved, and that's just who you are. And yeah, I mean, bottom line, females deserve, we talked about it. Females absolutely have a place in law enforcement. Is an absolute necessity. They bring a different perspective, especially on teams like, and before we go, and I'll say her name, but like when I ran the task force, we were doing like some wires and different stuff like that. And we brought a female investigator over from the jail to work into our task force, which had never really been done before. Not female, but just investigator. And anyways, so she came over to our task force. It was all type A personalities, like 10 guys. There's a secretary she's pretty much type A. And that's a whole different story. And then female investigator named Daisy. Like Daisy came over and absolutely crushed it. Like we relied on her for everything. We worked like 100 and some days straight. But like she was literally the glue to our unit. Like, I mean, even as she was amazing at the job, just one of the best people I've ever worked with in the job and out. But like we were living in office because we were running wires. She knew everybody's birthday, right? We had birthday cakes. She would be like, hey, do you guys take your wife's flowers home because you haven't been home in months? Like she could tell when somebody was off. Like she'd come to me and like, hey, sorry, like so-and-so is like, he's not doing good today. Like, I think something's going on. I'm like, what's up? She was like, oh, she would know what was going on in personal business. Dude, that is like, you can't put a price on that. And people can sit there and say that's not cop work. Bullshit. Because if you want to be a fucking family, like that's what you need. She was an amazing cop, one of the best cops I've ever worked with. She's a sergeant now at the jail. But she also brought a different perspective that we would have never survived in that unit. Dude, we worked like 3 years, damn near straight, minimal days off, stuff like that, without her. And I mean, she just brought this different mindset. Like, I would say something, I'd be like, oh, we need to do this and this. And she'd be like, man, so I don't think we should do that. This is fine. But she like came at me like in a way that I couldn't even argue. Like she's just kind of soft spoken. She's like, I can't talk to you. I'm like, yeah. And just the way her deliverance, right, to everybody. Like I've worked a lot of wire cases, and normally there's usually like some type of fight or anger. And honestly, because of her, it was never there because she just brought something different. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying she didn't bring something to the table for the job, because she like solved homicides, rapes, and all kinds of stuff during our investigation. I'm just saying you bring something else, so don't short sell yourself and be like, oh, I can't be that motherly figure, or bring a different perspective, because she truly changed people's lives. We had deaths in the family during all of this. Dude, she like, everybody had flowers, everybody was taken care of. She'd like, hey, she'd come to me as a sergeant. I'm the sergeant. She'd be like, so-and-so needs a day off. And I'm like, all right. You know what I mean? Like, and we had a female secretary who was in there, who was like our mom too. And, she heard everything we said all day. She could tell you some crazy stories about conversations, but dude, she was rad. Her name's Cindy. And dude, without her, we wouldn't have survived either. But, those are strong female figures. They weren't like this overbearing type A personality all the time. They would sit back and listen, be a little bit more methodical, and then come at us with a better plan. And people listened to them. Like when Daisy spoke, everybody shut up. And you're talking about guys from DOJ, FBI, like everybody. Like when she spoke, people would be like, okay. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't screaming. She was just like this Mexican mom. She's younger than me, but you know what I mean? She just had that demeanor. She didn't try to be somebody else. And dude, she handled it. Suspects listened. Suspects would tell her whatever they like, whatever they needed. She just had that like persona about her.
I sense a lot of empathy. And that's one thing I was thinking, like, they do really well at too.
Oh yeah. Like
I suck at it. So when I would see a female officer do, I'm like, I want to be that good with that.
oh dude, 100%. Like, and man, like for interviews with children, suspects, moms or ladies in general, man, you have a good female officer with empathy, that's a game changer in several different ways. Like the female investigator I talked about earlier, like she used to be an explorer, not Daisy, somebody else. She was an explorer. She was doing homicide interviews in Spanish at like 17 years old. So yeah, like kids talk to her like no other. She has a way of comforting kids, and even like male suspects will talk to her because you got to know when to use those people too. Like it's more of a supervisory issue, but like if you have a female like that who's strong with empathy and she knows what she's doing, she's squared away. You get her into the room with a male suspect and they know how to talk to him. Like it's kind of opposite of what we were saying earlier, but they will be open up to them a little bit more because one, they may see them as weak, but then they're like, oh shit, like this is like my mom talking to me right now. Like I can't be disrespectful.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? Like, so you have to plug and play and do it, use them for where they're at. Just like I can't interview everybody, but I'm at. When women not only belong in law enforcement, it is a necessity to have women in law enforcement.
Exactly. Because imagine those examples that we gave in the beginning. Like imagine like a child victim trying to approach a 250-pound, 6'5" officer, or approaching the smaller, this female officer that's more compassionate and more empathetic. And the bigger officer just like close off and like not really talking. Like,
oh yeah, like 100%. So I was a child forensic interviewer, and like interviewed sexual assault victims and kids. And like a lot of the kids would talk to me because I was just used to talking to kids, stuff like that. However, I always had, I agreed to do it. And the same investigator I'm talking about, she asked me, like, kind of get into me, do I agree to do it as long as the female was kind of always on standby? Right? Because sometimes you need a male. The boys would talk, even the girls. I got like girls and boys to talk to me. There was times though, like I knew right away, like I'm not gonna really get there, and I would bring her in, dude, and the kids would just talk to her. I mean, she's gifted at what she does, anyways, but she's just got that vibe. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's huge. That is such a big deal because we're always thinking like cops, punching, shooting, wrestling, fighting, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yes, that is a huge part of it. However, like there's a big picture that goes into this. And, those are just some examples where females are going to thrive at it. Like they're so good at it. And that's why like sexual assault interviewers and forensic child interviewers are predominantly female for a reason.
So before we get going, kind of on a mental health standpoint, but what would you say to any like active like law enforcement female officer right now, or female cadet going to the academy or wanting to even just join in law enforcement that's a female? What's a good piece of advice you would give them, on the mental standpoint, like about to go into this job, or if they're even working right now, like what's the best on the mental aspect of it?
I would just say, understand what you're getting into, have a really good female mentor, and be careful have a good female mentor. However, this could shy away or be careful with people who are pushing the whole like feminist type woman pride, or like woman power type stuff. And I don't mean it like that in a bad way, but if that's all they're focused on, they're not going to steer you down the right direction. They're almost going to make you bitter at the world. You know what I mean? Instead of like kind of a talk we had today, being like, hey, yep, people are going to doubt you. They're going to do this. You're a girl. You got to try harder, blah, 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 blah. Don't give people the perception that you're, maybe you're being sleeping with everybody, but that perception is going to be there. You got to know you're a female. Keep that, chip on your shoulder. However, like you were sent here by God to do God's work. as a female. Like, do it and stay true to who you are. Work your ass off, and just understand it is going to be harder for you. You are going to be more challenged. You have to work harder. You have to be on your toes. You have to know what's going on. Everybody thinks you're weak, and that's okay. Accept it, deal with it, and just, you know what I mean? Go out and do your best. Like, stay true to who you are in your heart, and a good female role model will definitely get there. And then I think it brings in a whole different thing of, like, whether it's a mom, like female mom who's married with kids, maybe a husband's not in law enforcement. So just carry that chip on your shoulder, stay true to who you are, and go out there and kick their ass.
I love it. And I'll just end it with, like, my biggest thing was just, have awareness, like you said, have awareness and use that awareness as fuel. So like you said, they're going to doubt you, but then if you use it as fuel and you pretty much make them like believe, or pretty much, how would you explain that? Like, they doubted you and and now they fucking like regret it. And it's pretty much like, I get excited whenever I do that tonight. I could sense like the general like doubtness from the get-go, whether it's a suspect or something like that. And I always come out on top. And I'm just like inside, I'm like chuckling and laughing, like, watch this shit. Like, it gets me excited to like want to prove something. Like, I'm about to fucking do this or do that. And I know my capabilities. So I think is just have awareness and just make sure that, like, do your best to be as proficient at whatever you're doing. And like, don't ever try to ask for standards to be lowered. Like, just go above the standard and just do, and that's it. Like, so that's kind of like my thing right there.
No, I love it. That's perfect. Like, set the standard. Don't fucking ask for it to, be lowered to you. I like that. That's a perfect example.
Perfect, man. Well, it's good to see you again, Taylor. Well, obviously we talk on the phone too, but it's good to put the podcast back on. Again, we'll give another episode out for you guys soon when we get her scheduled this week for an interview. I hope you guys like it. And again, like, leave a comment or review. And Taylor, you have a good night, my brother.
All right, brother. You too. Be safe.
Thank you. You too.